Let's explore how to make functions or methods in Ruby. So I'm going to do this in the text editor simply because when you do multi-line things in the interactive Ruby browser, it is not the nicest. So we got our shebang here, and we will create a new function. The keyword for creating a method or a function, since everything's an object, it's hard to distinguish between the two in Ruby, is def, and we're going to define our new function. Let's just do it like this, and it's going to take two parameters, a and b, and let's say this is a simple adding function. In most programming languages, you would see something like this: a plus b, and then you could do that. And so let's write this new function. So we get some color syntax highlighting, and that shouldn't look that much different from most other programming languages. But here's the interesting thing in Ruby: we don't need this return. It's acceptable, it's available, but we don't need it. And most idiomatic Ruby does not include the return keyword. This evaluates a plus b, and since it's the last line, the last statement, last expression in this function, it returns a plus b for you automatically. And so we can do something like let's do put s new function 1, 2, and we will see if we save this and go to make sure it's executable and run it, that we get 1 plus 2 is 3. So not a surprise here. But let's explore some other interesting things about methods in Ruby. The first one is that the parentheses are optional. So let's do 3, 4. No parentheses there. Save it, rerun it, and we get 3 plus 4 equals 7 like we want. And so that is something that's up to you whether you want to do parentheses or not. It's very mixed bag on whether that's a good or bad idea. Some people think it's horrible, some people think it's wonderful. But you do have to be careful with it. You can't do something like this. Do new function 5 new function 6, 7, where we're trying to make this part right here be the second parameter to this, because the reality is that this comma that separates the parameters from this functions is ambiguous. The parser can't tell whether this comma belongs to this outside new function or to this inside new function, and you probably are confused too. Let's see what happens when we do that. We get this unexpected value, and so you may say, well, okay, let's help it out. Let's give it the outer parentheses. So that must mean, since new function takes 2 parameters, that the only thing that makes sense is that this is that optional thing. And that would be nice, but Ruby does not allow that either. It's still ambiguous because when it's parsing this, it doesn't know how many parameters to pass this function. And since it doesn't know how many parameters during parsing, it can't do that information. And so that doesn't work either. What we have to do is put the parentheses around here. Now it is unambiguous. This comma is inside these parentheses, so it must be for those parameters. And so this becomes then the second parameter to this new function call. And so if we run it now, everything works like we want. So 6 plus 7 is 13, plus 5 is 18, exactly what we got down here. And so you can do functions in this way. evaluate for yourself whether you like the parentheses or not, but do be careful if you decide not to do the optional parentheses, that you don't get into these ambiguous things. And sometimes it's ambiguous, not ambiguous for the computer, but it's still ambiguous for the human reading it. So evaluate that carefully.